building and launching wooden ships, of turtling and exporting thatch rope, our only two industries in those times. Hogstye Bay has been our hub of commercial shipping for many years before I was born. My great-grandfather, Robert Albert, was a master mariner. So was my father-in-law, a master mariner. And my wife's grandfather, Captain Ali E. Banks, a master mariner. My granduncle, Captain Lythan E. Banks, a master mariner. And my own father was also a master mariner. They used that harbor, and it was before their time. Why? I would think that they thought, and talking back, because some of them were still alive in 1977 when we built the present port. So they knew it was the harbor. Where else could we move this large seaport to? Ask ourselves that question. Into the North Sound? Or in Red Bay? Where? These are common questions that are arising now. If we went anywhere else, imagine the destruction that you have to do to the marine environment to get a harbor in Red Bay. From hundreds, if not thousands of feet before you get to the reef, you have to cut a channel, and a deep channel to get to the channel or get to the reef. Then you have to cut a big channel all the way in, and then when you get in there, you have to build and dig a huge basin to operate. The same thing with the North Sound. Now, I like to think myself progressive, and one time I said that's what I wanted to do. Well, they never killed me as you see me standing, but they nearly did. So, all the studies that we have seen say we shouldn't put it in those places, nowhere else but where it is now. Leave it alone right where it is today. Our harbor is our only harbor, only one in Cayman. It's not a marine park. There are over 300 dive sites. I think in Grand Cayman, maybe the minister might be able to correct me, but I think, from what I recall, there's some 300 plus dive sites in Grand Cayman. How can any fair-minded person expect our only harbor to be a marine park? And I think most of my constituents, whether they supported me or not, they will know that I'm a very frank person. I say what's on my mind. And I'll tell you this, I wouldn't spend any money on the Balboa. What? What is the Balboa? You're not got nothing left there. Furthermore, it is the government. They got their job to do. They're spending quite a bit of money for the relocation of coral. And that's to please all those persons that say they believe that we shouldn't do anything with whatever coral is left there. I've always supported, if we couldn't go anywhere else, it'd have to be Georgetown, right where it is. I was minister for the port, responsible for the port for several times, responsible for tourism, responsible for transport. Someone asked me if I dive. I said, yeah, when I was 16 years old, I could dive about 40 feet without any thanks. I can't do so now. But when I was minister, we had the opportunity to go out in the submarine. And you see all those beautiful pictures that they're putting up on Facebook. What a bunch of dirty people. Can you imagine that they're telling us that some of those photos we're seeing is taken out in our harbor? And we know that that is not so. They're not photos from our harbor. Out there has been decimated by the anchors over the years because that's our harbor. And my only caveat has been, so long we don't damage 7 Mile Beach, and we should try all our best to save Eden Rock. And the government has done that. I had to think, I am no marine scientist of any kind. But if the sand is moving from 7 Mile Beach to South Sound, and they have said that over and often, this is where the sand moves, this is where the sand moves. Well, by God, use your common sense. Wouldn't all those pieces of iron shore up in front of Maples and Calder, all that rock at some point been some kind of beach? If the sand was moving, at some point, we would have had some sort of beach there. I don't believe that the sand, and various studies over the years, and we've had them done when I was minister from back then, and studies were done from as far back as probably 30, 35 years ago, if not more. So it seems that some people don't want to believe that the government is doing what is best in this project. But pray, tell. Why would we say otherwise, but where is best to build it? The budget we just produced, the government just produced, is a good budget. And it's evidence of the extent of our financial or present financial needs, from infrastructure to paying for all the usual essential public services. But do you think our books could ever be balanced if we had to absorb the cost of building this port facility ourselves? We wouldn't get it. We have to have the buy-in, the assistance of the private sector when necessary. And from the original port to major projects ranging from schools and hospitals to highways, we seek to get the buy-in of the private sector. And it seems hard for them to understand, but never before, I say, has an outside investor offered to cover the full upfront costs, including building and maintaining a cargo facility, which we need badly, and doing so while the legal contract clearly states that our own Port Authority will remain in full control of all operations at the facility, now and going forward. Yes, government will lose a little share of head tax, but we will also still take in a good amount, and the increased passenger numbers, fellow West Bears, will mean that we are getting slightly more in revenues and definitely not less. So if you are getting back slightly more money by doing the port in this way, how can anyone say that it is costing the public anything more? Far too many conflicting stories, and they say government hasn't given out the information, but what I see coming from proponents to stop the dock is very, very confusing. Government have approached this project with persistence, consultation, strategic partnerships, many, many negotiations, and sometimes I wonder if it wasn't excessive negotiations, and with respect and diplomacy, especially for our people who will be the beneficiaries. And so just as the previous port was done by visionary politicians of their time, this new port will stand and serve Cayman well. God willing, I dare say, it will outlast me, it will outlast you, and it will outlast all who are in the current government. And yes, it will be paid off. Yes, we have to give up some fees. As I said, in the long run, it balances out for us. But ask those people who are telling you that we shouldn't have to do this. Who's going to pay for it? At any point? Whether you put it, wherever you put it, somebody got to pay for it. My mother always told me there's not such a case as something for nothing. But we are blessed to get the deal that we have and for it to be balanced the way it is. I am the chairman, but being the speaker and not getting a chance to speak, I had to make my case tonight. But this is what this meeting is for as well. And you will be hearing from eminent persons on the various questions. And please remember to write your questions so that they can be answered. What I do know, being in the business for many years, my family has been, as many, many families here in West Bay. And this is something else that you who got a vote need to think. How in the world can anybody put on any Facebook? You know you got a lot of those Facebook champions, right? But how can you put on the Facebook that this is not helping Caymanians? The cruise industry, ladies and gentlemen, is where the vast majority of Caymanians has been for many, many years. Years ago, in the hotel industry, when we just had a few hotels and a few condos, my mother and her age group, they worked in the hotel industry. Younger Caymanians were not going to clean rooms and do the laundry. They went to the banks, where my mother pushed me. I like the tourism industry. That's where I started out. I love to be in it and enjoy and meeting people. No, you can't do that. You have to go to work in the bank. So 1972, I went to CIBC. But the people, the younger persons did not gravitate to the service industry. When the cruise industry became more prominent and people start to see that they could make a good living from it, they start to buy their own tour buses. They start to buy their own cars for taxes. They invested in boats to go to various points in the North Sound. These are Caymanians and West Bayers. Don't be fooled by those persons who are only campaigning against the dock because they are hoping that that's going to take them in to the Legislative Assembly come the next election. They might get a surprise. I don't have no crystal ball, but I'm good at fighting elections too. Caymanians and West Bears, I'm talking to you. Vast amount of people in tourism today, Caymanians, are in the cruise business. They pay their bills, they feed their families, they pay their school fees, those that have private schools, sending their children. They live and move and have their being because of the cruise industry. And let me tell you, they're sending out all sorts of things saying that this country is against cruise, and this country is against cruise. I've been there long enough and been the minister long enough to know the fight that the cruise industry had with several other countries, particularly in the region, who had the same idea that we don't need a cruise business, we got the hotels. And sometimes, when they push the issue against the cruise industry sailed past them. I bet you they changed their mind after that. But I knew the fight they had, and afterwards they changed because they realized that they could have employment on the cruise ships for those people that want it. They realized that their own people were making their living from the cruise industry. And so that fight slowed down. You still got, throughout the region, real, I think, genuine conservationists, environmentalists. Yes, they are genuine. And so they have their concerns, and that's what we have here. But ladies and gentlemen, be careful who you listen to. We do have some genuine concerns, people with concerns. And I know who they are and how it's been over the years. I haven't agreed with them, I built West Bay Road against a fight and I lost elections partly because of it. But I had to do what I had to do. Go back in time, ladies and gentlemen, and over my 64 years, starting from very early that I could understand and hear politics, some of the best things for this country were opposed by people who were looking a seat in the Legislative Assembly. I think of cadastral survey. One of the biggest marches and demonstrations this country had was against the cadastral survey. My mother went. Years later, she said to me, what a bunch of fools we were. This is the best thing. Today I have my land papers. But back then, they were telling people that government was going to take their land. Cadastral has proven to be a good thing. Then Mr. Berkeley built the port, and the government then built the port, had to build the road, the main highway, had to build a hospital, had to build a government admin, had to build the courts, had to build the LA, and they did it in 4 years. I think the port would have said what it was, cost in 1977, $3 million, something like that. Something like $3 million. They nearly killed poor old Mr. Berkeley. And they called him every bad name under the sun. And that government, every one of them, lost their seat. Except Ms. Annan, that's because she was jumping on both sides all the time. Ladies and gentlemen, be ye careful who's selling you any ideas on this. This is the best deal. The government has worked hard to try to get a good deal. They have that good deal. Everything that can tell you this is not going to affect 7 Mile Beach, there's not going to be no big hole dug out there. They're talking about this big hole. None. And you will hear that when you ask your questions. Be ye careful who you listen to. They don't mean you any good. Some of these people, and I can say this, while they stand and accuse elected representatives about being for sale, they are the ones for sale. Ask them who's paying their bills. If government is paying for any advertisement, ask them who's paying for all them colorful red ink I see on Facebook and all over the place. Who is paying for that? Some of the same ones, ladies and gentlemen, that will see you die see your children suffer, see your bills go unpaid, see you lose your house because you cannot afford to pay. If you lose your industry, support the cruise industry. Let us get to the point where we are improving and advancing our facilities. These people who are CPR, we know who they are. They fought everything that they want to fight every time they want to fight. They wanted a referendum to do what? Can you know? They wanted a referendum so that you could have your say. Well, they went out and got the signatures. Many people supported it. They got the signatures. Now what they're trying to do? Do you know that they are trying to sue government to stop the referendum from going forward? Or you didn't know that? It's a fact, though. That's the same bunch that want to lead you. Please don't let them lead you anywhere. Particularly not on this. And so, at this time, I will stop here. I'm used to speaking 2 and 3 hours at a time. And I was giving more people an opportunity to come, but I don't want the Premier to lose his chance. And so we're going to call on our Premier. It's been a very rough week and better for the Premier. And I had to say to him a few days ago, I don't know how he's done this. Because losing the person in your life who's guided your life is not an easy thing. And then to be in the assembly, to go through that budget, and then have this on his shoulders as well. So give him a listening ear at this time. And we, of course, here in West Bay, sympathize with him and his family. And I'm going to say one more thing before he comes. All the while that me and the Premier had to fight each other. Not had to fight each other, he wanted to fight me. I say this, when I hear them criticize, and I could say this as I've said about Ralston Anglin. When the Premier got into politics, and so you understand something, he could have stayed and been a lawyer, and he would have been able to walk away by now with $40, $50 million as some others have. He didn't choose that path. That's one thing I've always respected him for. He could have done it. Ralston Anglin is the same thing. He gave up a junior partnership to come and run. Those guys, they gave something to us. Just keep that in mind when you see all these people criticizing. Don't tell me about how he criticized me. I know he criticized me. I criticize him too. Thank God we were able to work together, put aside our differences for the good of this country, and we are better off today. So, Premier, over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good evening, everyone. It's good to be here in West Bay. Thank you all for turning out for this meeting. I want to thank the Speaker and all the other many of you who have expressed condolences on the loss of my father. It's really meant a great deal to all of us. And some of the older ones of you will remember that he taught school here in West Bay in 1946 to 46, 47. The Speaker has gone into quite a bit of detail about the project and its benefits and the reasons why we believe you should support it. So I won't rehearse that because we have some of the experts here who will be able to answer, I believe, any of the technical questions you have. And on the policy political side, we can handle that here as well. But we do want to leave sufficient time for you to be able to get those questions in. So I won't go through a long spiel about that. I think certainly in the 19 years I've been in Parliament, I have never seen, regardless of which side I've been on, any project that government has done which is not only completely self-financing, but which is funded upfront by other money that is not government money. So on the commercial end of this, I do not believe it is possible to have a better arrangement than we have come to, and that will be gone into in some detail during the video presentation. I think the biggest issue for most people, certainly in the experience that I've had moving around and the public meetings, are the concerns, the environmental concerns. And so we hope that we are going to be able to address those in some real detail tonight, and to bring a level of comfort to those of you who have those concerns, that government is doing everything it can. Government recognizes there will be environmental impact. Government is doing everything we can by us and Verdant Port partners to ensure that that impact is mitigated. And our red line has always been and remains, if at any point in the execution of the environmental impact assessment, there is any question about potential damage to 7 Mile Beach, that's the end of the project as far as we're concerned. That is an absolute red line. So I'm not going to burn up any more time. I just want to say to Mark that it took us a long time to figure it out, but we're better together.
Call on the Honorable Minister Tara Rivers to make some remarks. He's the representative for West Bay South.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Mr. Speaker. Thank you for giving such a colorful but factual overview of the historical perspective of our port, what we have today, and taking us back to the time where I know certainly within my own family lineage, and many of you I see in this room,
That's right.
your bread was buttered because somebody in your family went to sea to make sure that it was, and not just in terms of from the days of turtling, but I can recall growing up seeing that boat, and it was called that boat because my grandfather was always on that boat, according to my grandmother, and he was one of the first sea captains to start and be in the tourism business, catering primarily to the cruise tourism with respect to taking passengers out to the Sandbar, now Stingray City, and other North Sound sites. And to say that growing up, knowing that essentially the food in my grandparents' table was based on the work primarily that he did as growing our tourism product, but also being able to sustain the family income as a result, is a very personal thing for me. So, as the speaker has said, I certainly know and understand the relationship with tourism and cruise tourism for the District of West Bay. But as a representative for the District of West Bay South, I want to in particular say welcome to all of my constituents who have come out. I know that, again, I think it's very fitting because not only am I the representative for West Bay South, I'm a representative and the Minister for Financial Services. And as you know, financial services and tourism are the two key pillars to the economy here in the Cayman Islands. And I know a lot of my constituents are in both of those fields. And so I hope that obviously the ones that are in tourism, you know, you live it, you see how important a project like this is to your own livelihood. But I'm glad to see that there are a number of people who are also not necessarily directly connected to tourism, but maybe more so financial services, that you're here today to hear. And the whole purpose of this meeting was to provide information. And so I am glad that you're here. And also, for those of you that may know people that either can't be here in person, please send a message, tell them to log on to Cayman Life TV, Facebook, or support our tourism Facebook, website, or YouTube. All of this is being streamed live because we are in the age of technology and people need to hear whatever the message that needs to be delivered tonight from the technical people who will be here to answer questions, and of course, any of the other speakers. My role is just to welcome you and to say, as I've said on the floor of the House, as I've said in many occasions, I believe in participatory democracy. Here is your chance to ask your questions. Please submit your questions now, during, right at the end of the speakers' presentations, to the box, I believe, in the back or out front here. We have capable people who will be fielding those questions when the time comes. But if you have concerns, and I think no concern is not a concern that should be voiced. Of course, we expect respectful communication, but now is the time to put forward your questions. But for those of you that are here and that truly want to learn more about this project, the only thing that I ask you to do is keep an open mind. Keep an open mind and listen to the information and the message that's being delivered, and have your questions asked. Hopefully they'll be answered, and if you have additional questions thereafter, we will make ourselves available as and when during this process to ensure that your questions are answered to the satisfaction and to the best extent possible, given the timeline that we have right now and what is projected to come. So basically, that's my role here, is to welcome you as well to the District of West Bay, and in particular, my constituents from West Bay South. If you got the email from me today, that means you're on my distribution list. If you live in West Bay South and you have not received that email, please be sure to see me afterwards, because I wouldn't want you to miss any other important meetings that may be coming forward thereafter. So thank you very much, and I hope that you have a very informative meeting here today.
Thank you very much, Minister Rivers. And I'm going to call now on the Deputy Premier and the Minister of Tourism, Mr. Moses Kakernal, no stranger to us, and he's the one who has been carrying this burden on his shoulders, and I think he has done an excellent job in getting us to this point. And I hope that on the 19th of December, 1 month from today, we will get a positive result and we move forward and we can deal with other matters, get our cruise facilities where we are the envy of the other countries. Deputy Premier.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Very pleasant good evening to everybody here in West Bay. I'll tell you a little story. 15 years ago, I was elected as the member for Cayman Brac, and I came to the House and I found the Premier and the Speaker, and they were times when they didn't get along. But I'm sincerely telling you tonight, they are better together.
There we are.
There's been a very good overview given. I only want to talk about two specific areas that have been questioned and questioned and questioned. Number one, the policy of the government is to create opportunity for the people of this country, and that's economic opportunity and that's protection of the environment in a balanced way. We had an opportunity to look at how we could develop the second leg of our economy, which is tourism. I think everybody here, it's safe to say, has been through our new airport and understands that that was developed to protect our stayover visitors. Our stayover business was seasonal, and we had to attack the market to find out how we could flatten that season So the people in that industry didn't work just 7 months out of the year, that they had the same type of opportunity throughout the year. Once we were able to do that, and we did that through incentivizing the different months of the low season, we moved quickly to do the exact same thing for cruise. Now we have operators here tonight, and they're happy to tell you that they have some very good months and they have some very slow months. So I don't know how you plan a business around working only 7 months out of the year. What do you tell your employees when you say, I'm going to hire you, but I'm only going to hire you for 7 months out of the year? What do you do with your equipment? What do you do when you're trying to figure out your marketing? So our obligation as a policy from the government was to flatten this season out and to make sure the cruise industry had the opportunity to work all 12 months out of the year. And we had another challenge that we wanted to draw into the contract that we did, and that was to make sure we could protect the carrying capacity of the island. So when you hear people say you're going to bring more people, the carrying capacity is a daily carrying capacity. So we have the ability, because the Port Authority is the one responsible and runs the cruise arrivals and the numbers, to cap that amount. The most that we've had is 25,000 people, and I would say that that's a carrying capacity that we know we've had them, we know that they have become return, we know that the businesses were able to accept them. So we don't want any more people that day to tax our attractions. What we want is that in the slow part, when we're only getting 5,000 a day, or days when we're getting none at all, that's when we want the ships. And those ships come in the summer months and the slow months. Our negotiations with Royal Caribbean and Carnival have revolved around, how do we get your highest spending passenger to visit us in our slowest time of the year? Big challenge. The answer to that was, we want to come to Cayman, but we can't send our large vessels who are on the western route and carry over 5,000 people to be tendered off of the vessel to the shore. If you are interested in a cruise berthing facility, we will put you on our itinerary. So how could we be sure of that? Well, they put up $200 million with no government guarantee, and no indebted, no bond, nothing from government. Think about that. You have somebody that's going to bring you business in the lowest time of the year with the highest spending customers, and they didn't want any kind of guarantee. They said, we are so confident, we are so sure that this will be a success and a partnership for us and you, that we will put up the $200 million. And it will be paid back when we bring the passengers to you. Each one of those people will pay. That's how they get paid back. But more importantly, for us and for the people that are involved in this industry, they know that it's no longer a 6 or 7 month high season. This gives continuity throughout the year, opportunity throughout the year, and it gives incentive for people to become more and more involved in our tourism industry, and it gives opportunity for generations to come. And we understand, and you'll see a lot of that tonight, of the balance that we have to strike. It's a responsibility of each one of us in this room to strike the balance between the environment and the economy. And that's what we propose to do. We are here tonight to take your questions. We have a fabulous presentation by our partners. I look forward to seeing it again tonight, see the presenter. So thank you all for coming out tonight, and we look forward to your questions. If they don't get answered tonight, I think the moderator will tell us where they're going to be answered. Thank you all very much.
Thank you very much, Minister. Thank you for your hard work, not just in cruise, of course, in the entire tourism industry. Cayman is going in the right direction. I will call on Ms. Sabrina Sims Turner to take over at this point. She has been doing a good job in moderating meetings in other districts, and I am glad to have her here tonight to help as well. Sabrina.
Thank you, Speaker. Good evening. It is my pleasure to be in the District of West Bay to moderate the question and answer, and I'll ask you at this moment to direct your attention to the screens where we will feature our cargo video. After that, I'll invite to the stage Mr. T.J. O'Sullivan, Director of Compliance, Global Tour Operations, Royal Caribbean. So please direct your attention to the screen.
I've been at the port from 1995. All these vessels keep on getting bigger. We are having more and more actually containers coming in. If you look at the figures from back in 2010, we actually had about 22,000 TEUs coming in. And at the end of actually 2018, we were up at actually 30,000. So this is a fairly large increase in only 8 years. So if we continue with that same actually trend, another 8 years, we're going to be 35, 37% more, and we just do not have that space as it is now for us to keep on doing this. We cannot move all the containers that come in off of a vessel from the dock up to the cargo center within a single night. All of the actually increased volume, it is just not making it possible anymore.
Tendering makes it really rough for a wheelchair to get on and off, especially if you get some waves.
I would prefer a dock to be freely go on and off this boat as I wish.
Having a dock would be more convenient.
Many long lines.
I said it was very hot in the tender coming over, so it was not fun. It was hot, but dripping. It was just too hot coming across.
I'm just going to stay on the ship and avoid the chaos.
It just really cuts down your ability to be on the island longer.
We've been on Norwegian many times, and we've never had this.
There's no doubt about it. There needs to be a pier here.
Well, the tendering is short. It's just that the lines are long, so the pier would be better.
We've been in line for over half an hour, and it goes all the way back. You can't even see the end of the line, and we've been in it for half an hour. Last tender's supposed to be at 3.
I would be in favor of the pier because it would eliminate these lines waiting for the tender ship boats to come. We've been standing here for a really long time.
We had to tender in, and it took us a really long time to get off the boat. So our excursions were supposed to start at 8. We didn't get here until 9:30.
I don't like to be tendered, and I don't have to like to stand in this line like this, stand in this hot sun, and it makes it easier.
Because nobody stops for more than 8 hours. You end up spending 3 hours doing the tendering process. So actually it would be advantageous for the community because they would make more money because people would be on the island longer instead of standing in lines.
And now, it's the fact that we're supposed to be able to have a longer time, and it's really shortening up our ability to spend more time on the island because now we're in this giant line to tender back.
I've never had to wait in line like this for a tender. Never.
Well, we barely made our excursion, honestly. They said, we're glad you made it.
Walk off the ship and onto the dock. Yeah, that would be best.
How's everybody doing this evening? My name is T.J. O'Sullivan. I am the Director of Compliance with Royal Caribbean related to shore excursions, and I also have been working on the Cayman project for about 2 years. I used to work in the port development department of our company, and I'll explain a little bit about that. But what we're going to do is we're going to start you guys with a quick video that Vert Nile has put together to kind of give an overview, address a lot of the questions that we've had from our side. We're here tonight to present facts. We're here to answer questions. Just kind of want to discuss all the things that are out there, all the questions that people were having. We'll address most of them through the video and the PowerPoint presentation we have, and then after that, there'll be questions that run through. But we're going to start now with a quick video.
This project really is about, in many ways, changing the model from an old model that's been in place for decades, ships coming to a destination. This project is about modernization and creating an adequate facility that allows the arrival of those tourists to come in an efficient way. Grand Cayman is a pretty efficient airport, and it manages efficiently through design and experience. All of the aircraft coming in, debarking, embarking, customs, immigration, all the procedures necessary, and it does it in an efficient way on a relatively small footprint. Today, in the arrival of the ships arrive and they anchor in various locations around Georgetown. Tenders coming out to the ships, a long process to debark, and that's the process that we've got in place today for the cruise ship tourists, and that's approximately 1.8 million people. 600,000 air guests coming into a state-of-the-art airport, 1.8 million cruise tourists coming into fundamentally a model that was created 100 years ago. The group called Verdant is basically 4 companies: Royal Caribbean Cruises Limited, Carnival Corporation, Orion, and McAlpine. 2 cruise companies and 2 companies very much involved in construction and building, particularly in the coastal marine environment.
We believe the development of the cruise port facility will provide for additional economic impact opportunities for Grand Cayman, one by the additional spend we believe that guests and crew will have by being alongside compared to tender operations. And 2, more importantly, we believe the direct economic impact by having additional cruise arrivals to Grand Cayman will be significant. Having an enhanced welcome center arrivals, having berthing alongside are key components that we believe provide us the capability in the interest that we have in working with Grand Cayman.
Today, the larger ships can't go to Grand Cayman. It's just simply not possible to manage the volume of tourists that are on the large ships. So it's really the nature of that product attracts a much more affluent customer, and we think that very much aligns with Grand Cayman itself.
The project was the idea to upgrade both the cruise facility and the cargo berthing in Georgetown, Grand Cayman. So we've been working with them to come up with the best design that basically increases the size of the cargo pier capacity, which is vitally important to the needs of the Cayman Islands. On the cruise side, in building 2 finger piers that are 4-berth Oasis capable, you are increasing the size of the ships that can come into Grand Cayman.
The consortium takes on entirely the risk of the project. We are designing it, building it, executing against this contract, and we're funding and financing it, and all of the funding and financing is the responsibility of the consortium. So there's effectively 0 risk, 0 responsibility to the government of Grand Cayman or the people of Grand Cayman.
You know, there's this whole conversation about it's going to cost people money. This is 100% financed by this consortium, and it's paid back through head tax collected by the cruise line.
I think we're all worried about the impact on the environment, and our intention is to replace 10 times the coral that we've removed to create the facility.
We brought in a specialized team that has worked in Grand Cayman named Polaris. They've done a lot of coral restoration, including in Grand Cayman. The Grand Cayman results are 89% success rate since they've started.
This is not a small project. It's going to take a number of months to move the corals. We have worked on several ship grounding cases here in Grand Cayman where we helped restore the reef. We feel like we're very qualified. We've worked on some really large projects, and we have skilled scientists, engineers, and frankly, artists, because it really involves all 3 of those aspects. It's not just a scientific endeavor. It's not an engineering endeavor. It's also an artistic endeavor. Our goal is to make a reef that looks like a reef, using all natural materials, with healthy corals that lay people and even scientists after a period of time could not tell the difference. On this case, we've done this before. We've thought to go small and move reef sections individually with small boats to stay out of the port's way, have a number of boats working side by side, moving that over to the donor area. And then when we start moving corals over, our aim is to be out of the 10-acre dredge footprint area in about 6 months.
For this project, we will be working on coral relocation as the part where we're taking out the direct impacts from where the dredging and the pier will be constructed. And then the other aspect, because we do know that there will be some loss due to coral relocation, we have decided to use this microfragmenting technique to increase overall coral cover within Grand Cayman. And we think that that will increase it by 10 times.
We're working with a group led by Dr. Vaughan, who's been at the forefront of advancing the coral microfragmenting planting technology.
Grand Cayman has got a beautiful natural resource, and they know they want to share that with the world. To do so, we have to be able to help make sure the natural resources has all the help we can, and that is with technology. We have the technology now to put to good use in natural resource restoration. That's what this is. And we can make something beautiful. We have that technology. It'd be a shame to not apply it. Some of the biggest questions people had is, can we do this at scale? And so we looked to start a project that was plant 1 million corals. Not only is it basically a good idea, it's our mission, it's our vision, and as I like to say sometimes, it's the recipe. Not only do we make many pieces, but each piece grows back to size in record time, which is very unusual.
Our goal is no net loss on this project. We've engaged Dr. Vaughan to bring his research and knowledge to Grand Cayman. There's a lot of coral. We understand the impact to that. But our responsibility is to move that coral and to supplement that program with adding Dr. Vaughan's coral restoration process through microfragmentation.
What's great about the microfragmentation technique and some of the other coral reskinning things that we do is we're able to see this actively happen before our very eyes. We can see it happen in a matter of months with each coral that we cut and plant.
I've seen some of the damage that anchors from 4 to 6 cruise ships do per day out there for years. There's a lot of severe anchor damage out there, and frankly, if that could be stopped in any way, that would be a positive.
That is a big negative with the current situation where the ships drop anchors and the chains drag and the anchors drag and they've destroyed acres of coral. There's a benefit there, particularly in the long term, because if you're not anchoring, then the coral has the opportunity to recover and regenerate over time. I mean, obviously, it's not overnight. So there is a positive there with the project. The project brings a number of positives.
We'd like to work with the community down here in Grand Cayman. There's a lot of scientific expertise here. There's a lot of dive expertise here. We've worked with some of the members of the community in the past. We have relationships with them and are looking forward to doing that again. All the techniques are proven. The survival has happened, good survival. We've seen it right here in Grand Cayman. We can absolutely do it. It's just a matter of effort and a matter of doing it safely.
We look as an advantage of working for this project in the Cayman Islands is that there is a close partnership with the DOE and the government on making sure that this is a sustainable project. One of the first things we will do is get out and do what we're calling the coral gridding. We're basically just putting divers in the water, and we'll be really mapping out, almost pretty much by hand, all of the coral. The primary relocation area is approximately a little more than half a mile north of the project site. And there we'll be placing large boulders on the bottom as a foundation or a substrate for the corals to be attached to, so that we'll have new coral structures. Dredging the area of the port is not a contributor to the sand at 7 Mile Beach. 7 Mile Beach is what's known as a pocket beach, and essentially the sand there is somewhat self-contained. In the port itself, that area just is not a contributor of sediment to 7 Mile Beach.
There's a total commitment to make this a really great environmental success. We changed the way we're going to dredge the project. And initially, we were looking at hydraulic dredging, but we changed the dredge process now to mechanical dredging. And we're going to have real-time sediment monitoring on the project.
It's important that the pier is on pilings and not a filled structure extending from shore to allow waves and currents to move through the structure as if it's not even there. because it's on piles, the changes to the hydrodynamics should be relatively minimal.
We are undertaking everything we can within the framework of the port infrastructure and the guest and arrival welcome center. And we need to work very closely with the government of the Cayman Islands and the broader community to ensure that as these master plan enhancements for broader Grand Cayman and the road works and so forth are taken into account, and ensuring that we can continue to deliver that experience as the port arrivals may grow over time.
Our high season is the summer, from May through to October, and that's where we get higher paying customers and much higher yields. And it's extremely complementary with the Grand Cayman high season, which is in the winter. By allowing these ships to come into and berth in Grand Cayman, it effectively means that during the summer months, where today there's not a lot of tourists coming from the cruise ships, there will be more tourists coming from the cruise ships. Therefore, it's going to increase the number of tourists overall for the year, but on a daily basis, there will be no increase.
We believe that this provides a great enhancement to the arrivals experience for our guests and crew, and allows us to continue to count on Grand Cayman well into the future as we explore and bring additional new large ships to this market.
That really is the essence of this project, and that's why we're hopeful that the proposal to move ahead with the cruise pier is approved.
Thank you. Got a live mic again? Okay, excellent. So, mentioned in the video, 4 partners in Inverted Nile: Royal, Carnival, Orion, and McAlpine. I started working for Royal Caribbean about 4 years ago. After spending a year in port operations, I switched over to the Port Development Group. After about a year in that department, I was working on one of our other projects in the Caribbean. It was September of 2017, and I went to a meeting at the port, and we had a discussion about the port. The idea was to sit there and talk about things we could do to improve the infrastructure and the community to assist the port. And what everybody in the meeting wanted to talk about and asked me as a member of Royal Caribbean about was the assistance that we were providing to the islands in the Eastern Caribbean during the hurricane in 2017. I let them know what we were doing in St. Martin, what we were doing in Puerto Rico, and the other places in the Eastern Caribbean we were assisting. And they said to me, this is more important to us as members of the Caribbean community, that we know that when something happens to our island, that Royal Caribbean will be there. It happened again this year in the Bahamas. Massive destructive hurricane that happened to the Bahamas this year. Royal Caribbean, our partners, Carnival, we're not only donating funds, but we're there assisting with meals and everything like that. I arrived today with Captain Tor. He's one of our port captains. He sailed on 28 Royal Caribbean ships. He's over at the Seafarers tonight talking to those guys about the marine aspects of the project, giving them background on those pieces of the puzzle. And he said, I haven't been here in a long time. I sailed into this port many, many times, and I haven't been here in a long time. He said, the time that sticks out in my mind the most of Cayman Islands is back in 2006, or 5, whenever Ivan was. 4, excuse me. He said, all this greenery was gone. And he said, I was on a ship that arrived 3 weeks after Ivan, as soon as we could get in there, and we brought medical supplies. He said, we were able to bring the port back online. I think you guys brought it back in 3 months. But that's what type of company Royal Caribbean is. People are always asking me, what's in this for you guys? What's in it for Royal? What's in it for the cruise lines? And the Deputy Premier and everybody here has touched on it. We are looking to develop partnerships. We're not in the port business. This is a subsidy of our business. We are in the cruise guest business, providing our guests with the best possible vacation. And over the years, what we have had to do is to help develop those port infrastructures so we can provide our guests with the best possible vacation, because they pay a pretty penny for it. And we know what they want because we've been listening to them for 50 years. Both Royal and Carnival have been in this business for 50 years. And you got a taste of it in that video earlier Those are all of our guests, what they tell us. I wish there was a pier. I wish I didn't have to tender. My life would be easier. I have a 1-year-old. I went on a cruise in September. When we were sailing, in the morning we got off, we did a tour. We did a shore excursion, we went to the beach. She's tired, we go back to the ship. She takes a nap. We go back and we go shopping in the afternoon. We're not going to do that if it's a tender. Anybody ever try to move a 1-year-old around? I'm sure there's many of us in this room that have. It's not easy. But if I can roll her on the stroller, put her on the ship, put her for a nap, come back out, I'm going to do it. My wife wanted to go shopping. That's the way things are. That's what people say. That's what a cruise guest wants. And that's what we're looking to do here. We are looking to assist and help develop a product that our guests want. I've done this in a handful of jurisdictions and a handful of places. The deal that the government of the Cayman Islands was able to negotiate is the best it's ever been. Normally, there's 3 pieces to the puzzle. A guarantee, a large reduction in your annual income, or release of the operations of the port. And the Cayman Islands government has done that and kept all 3. And it's really impressive, and I know that I heard at the FCCA a couple weeks ago, everybody was asking the Deputy Premier, how'd you get that deal? I want that deal. I'll sign up right now for that deal. Because this is a really good deal. So, 4 partners. We're hoping to start construction next year. We're going to build 2 Oasis-capable finger piers. Questions always asking us, are Royal and Carnival going to be the only 2 people to use this? No. There's something called a berthing preference, and I didn't know what this meant until I got into the cruise industry. A berthing preference is kind of, think of it like a timeshare agreement. If you have a timeshare agreement, you go on vacation, I have right of first refusal to use this apartment, this condo, this pier, these days of the week. So, if we have 4 berths, 7 days a week, there's 28. Royal and Carnival agreed beforehand to lend the winning bidder sufficient amount of money to receive 11 of those bids. 11 of those spots, excuse me. So 11 spots a week, Royal gets a right of first refusal. 11 spots a week, Carnival gets. MSC and Disney both have 3. 28 spots, right of first refusal. And how the berthing preference works is that 24 to 18 months out in advance, you've got to confirm that. If I'm not going, if I can't confirm 18 months out that I need that spot on Tuesdays, it goes out to the market. Anybody else can come in. So there's 28 spots a week that will be built and ready for the cruise industry to come visit. We're increasing the cargo by 30%. Our estimates, as we put together this bid, that was under, one of the things we keep hearing is that why didn't you guys tell us more about this? We were in a bid process where we were trying to win the competition. We had to put together, under parameters that government gave us, the best idea that we could come up with for the least amount of money that worked the best. So, in our bid proposal, the cargo pier comes in about $40 million. That's a $40 million piece of the puzzle that's going to be built that receives no funding from the cruise passengers like we get to pay for everything else. Just an add-on, a benefit to the Cayman Islands. The tender facility will be upgraded. Right now, 8 days a year on average, you have 6 ships here. So following the completion of the project, there will still be 6 ship days. There's still going to be ships out there. They won't be anchoring anymore. Will be what we call dynamic positioning, which means when we use the motors to hold the ships in place. We do it now. If you see 6 ship days out there, you have 4 anchor points currently. So basically all we're going to do is shift those ships that are at anchor to the pier, and then on days when we need more spots, we'll put the 2 out there at dynamic positioning. So we'll still need tenders. We'll still be using the tender, and I'll show that in the design coming up. We're going to upgrade the cruise arrival area. To be honest, you guys do not have a pretty cruise arrival area. It's not something we want to show our high-paying guests. They want to come see the Cayman Islands. They love this place. Why are we doing this? Cayman Islands has one of the highest appeal scores in the region. We measure everything on two things, appeal and satisfaction. Did the guests want to go there? Are they willing to buy a ticket in that itinerary based on the appeal of that place? And after they went, did it satisfy their needs? Did it meet their expectations? Cayman hits very high on appeal and satisfaction. This is an overview, a picture of how it's going to look. Some of these pictures are up around the room. We've seen it on the video that we went through. Much larger footprint. We're using the dredge material from out front. All 100% of that's going to go in, create the backfill. We're doubling the entire size. You saw the cargo video. They don't have enough room for their operations right now. Cargo facility was completed in when, Mac? 77, 76? 77. Minimal upgrade since then. It's grown over 500% on the same footprint that it is today. It's in major need of an operational upgrade. There's just not the space. Everybody sees the containers out there when you're going out to the airport. The containers are being moved around. It's like a giant game of Legos every day. It's not that safe. I've watched closed circuit TV of the video out there. There's people almost getting run over with the moving of the cargo containers because they're just moving stuff around. So we're going to double the size of that almost, 30%. And on the left side, on the north side, you see a much larger guest dispatch area. Buses, places to load up buses for the tours, places for the taxis, better shopping area. Here's a view from out front, totally upgraded, right? A much more presentable, much more desirable location, like the Cayman Islands is. Matches who you are. Saw it a couple times in the video. You heard the deputy premier say it. No financial risk, right? The people who will be signing the guarantees to the bank are Royal and Carnival. There is no risk to the government. I had a member of the press ask me, what about if you guys abandon the project? What if you abandon your project? That's like buying a house and just walking away, right? We are here to support this project, pay down the debt that we are taking out, bringing the passengers, setting up the itinerary, and in 50 years, Royal Caribbean has never abandoned anybody. We are partners through this. If something bad happens, we'll be here. Virgin Isle has to maintain the insurance for the project. If something needs to happen, something major needs to be redone, our insurance, and as part of the DBFM, the maintenance has to also be done. Speaker said, this project's going to outlast him. I don't know if that's true, but we are required to maintain it and insure it for 25 years, and we have to design it and build it to last 50 years. So it's an additional 25 years. We've got to basically turn over the keys to the apartment just like we left it. At that point, in 25 years, you take $250 million today, and you put it out, 250 US, 250 US, 200 CI. If you take that and put it out 25 years from now, it's worth more than $400 million. So when the asset is handed over, 100%, it'll be worth more than $400 million. It's going to be paid for by the cruise tax passenger, the head tax from the cruise passengers. We'll collect it. We'll distribute it amongst Port Authority, the environmental funds, Cayman Islands government. We'll pay down the debt. Everything will be paid that way. Maintenance insurance, 25 years. We've got to pay for that. And at the end, the government owns it. Like I said at the very beginning, and I'm sure that these guys had this happen, people will come in and say, sell me the port, let me operate it, I'll pay you cash on the barrel today. Because what does that allow them to do? That allows them to control the head tax. And that allows them to collect all the revenues. Collect the revenues from the shopping. Collect the revenues from how much you charge the buses to get in there, how much you charge the taxis to get in there. All of this remains with the Port Authority of the Cayman Islands. I can't stress it enough. This is the best deal that's ever been negotiated. It is a great deal. I could get you guys cash on the barrel tomorrow for this deal, if you let them have the control of the operation. And they didn't. Port Authority will remain in charge of all of it. Port Authority will set the head tax. Port Authority will work with the cruise lines to make sure that it's all paid. Everything stays with the Port Authority. Oversight of the retail, everything. Here's another picture of what that retail is going to look like. There are great opportunities to improve what our guests are seeing when they come off the ships. You guys will have that opportunity. We're going to build it. Another picture of the cargo. Not only are you increasing the land side, but you're also increasing the amount of ships that can park at one time. You've got a whole additional berth. The cranes will be able to move a lot more freely, disembark ships a lot easier on the cargo side. The row berth will be on this side, which allows the side where you saw it in the video where the drive on, drive off. Row in the vernacular means roll on, roll off. Very simple, but just an idea that you can bring cargo in and off. This is the updated design and footprint of the project. So throughout this process, in 2015, the government put together a team to kind of design and outline the plan for them. What you can see here, and let me see if I can get this laser to work, in the red is the initial design, right? And one of the things there was this dredging that was probably going to have to take place over in Hogstye Bay. So throughout this competition, Royal and Carnival, understanding the environmental impacts of this project and the risks associated, challenged our engineers and designers to come up with a better design. Part of the reason why, not until July when Verdant was named preferred bidder, that we couldn't answer some of these questions, because there were 3 of us competing to win this job. So, the white one is what we're using. So we're bringing the project farther out and really reducing the dredge footprint by about 30%. So this red space is no longer being dredged. It's down to about 10 acres in this green area, and of that 10 acres, only 5 of it is existing coral. The other one is hard bed with plotches of coral. But we're going to work with our international team to move that. You can't really see. For some reason, there's some words over there. But these are just 2 pictures of with anchoring and no anchoring, right? So we sent one of the things that we keep being told is, have you guys dove this site? So we sent out Dr. Vaughn, you saw him in the video, and Scott dove the project. We worked with Port Authority to get a team in the water a couple weeks ago. And what they noticed is, if I go back, let me see if I can go back. Oh, hold on. Are you driving or am I driving? Okay. So what they told us is that, yes, there is some very strong living coral in this area. But this area, which is pretty much where the 4 anchor spots are now, is there's a lot of dead coral. Over years, 40 years or so, that people have been anchoring out there. Cruise lines have been calling here since the 70s. They've been damaging the coral. So what happens when we build these large structures is that not only does it allow the development of substructures of corals and marine life to live below it, but you also have a possible return out here. Through our restoration and relocation program, we can continue to develop the coral out in the middle area that's been destroyed. And that's what that's just kind of showing. So we talked about Polaris. They've worked here in Cayman Islands. You saw Plant a Million Corals. This is Dr. Vaughn. We searched high and low for Dr. Vaughn. and are very impressed by the results he's having, by what he's been able to do with coral. It's very forward-thinking. It's a new technology. He talked about it in the video. The Cayman Islands will have the opportunity. When I met Dr. Vaughn, I said, not only is this going to change our avenues and results from the Cayman Island project, but this is going to change the entire industry. Because what's happening is that the cruise industry continues to grow. People are looking for places to bring their ships, and that there's always a need to supplement the coral relocation process. So this is just kind of a background on Polaris. They've done many projects around the globe with great success. They did 2 here in Cayman Islands. They've had about 89% success rate with their coral relocation project. They're going to be our primary for moving the larger pieces of coral to the donation site. These are some of the places they've had results. Hawaii, Puerto Rico, Cayman, 89%, 87%. They're having great success. And what we're going to do that they haven't done in these other projects is supplement the relocation with additional restoration through the microfragmenting, a new technology that's being utilized to assist and develop the relocation. A little bit of background on Dr. Vaughn, planted 1 million corals. Different from what we all know and hear of the staghorn and elkhorn coral, which is the 2 species of coral that people are very familiar with the development from the microfragmenting. Dr. Vaughn, through his research and development with Moat Lab in the Keys, was able to figure out that you can do it with all 28 species of Caribbean coral. So, throughout this whole process, when we are relocating those corals from the area that we need to move them, there will be coral that breaks off. What we're going to do is take that coral, microfragment it, grow it in a contained environment, and then replant it out on the reefs. Our goal is to not only keep the amount of coral we have, but develop it 10 times the amount that through microfragmenting. Oh, hold on, we skipped one. So this is just some photographic examples of his work. He can take one piece, make it to 9. Then within 6 months, you can see the growth. And then in 1 or 2 years, it grows all together. New technology that's being utilized to assist the coral process, the coral regrowth process. This is a reef he worked at in Cancun, Mexico. It was destroyed by a storm. Natural factors play a huge, huge piece of the destruction of coral. So he has been assisting these projects through the microfragmenting process. You can see on the next slide, the clicker would work. Oh, that's the same coral, the same reef through Dr. Vaughn. Talked about it in the video, silt management. We're going to be using mechanical dredge instead of the suction dredge. No offshore dumping. All of the material will be used back in the land reclamation piece. And we'll also have silt monitoring available. If there's any turbidity disturbances, we can stop the project in that area, move to another one. Another piece of the puzzle that everybody asks us about is, what are the issues when you bring the vessels into Pier? Don't your engines turn up all of the sand in the area? As we saw yesterday, no, 2 days ago, during the nor'wester, all of the sand gets turned up in that area. And then the day after, it settles back down. Silt is normally found in areas with a river. What is out there in Georgetown is sand. So, when our vessels come in, they're able to turn off the engines when they arrive. Different from anchoring when they're having, or dynamic positioning, they're having to keep a lot of the engines on to hold them in place. Now it's just one in, one out, and they're done. Much larger reduction in the disturbance to the turbidity. The 2015 EIA found no disturbance to 7 Mile Beach. The speaker said earlier, get into more of the studies, if anything shows different, the project will be stopped. We feel the same way about it. But as of now, and as of historical data, there's no tie to 7 Mile Beach. When I was a kid, I used to think that the bride and groom on top of the wedding cake was edible. And I used to always ask my mom if that's the piece of the cake that I could have. I want that piece up there. She said, no, that's for the bride and groom. Not only did I get to a little bit later, I realized they were made of plastic. Not until my aunt and uncle got married when I was about 9 or 10, I realized that they were plastic. Same thing happened to me before I got in the cruise industry. I thought the piers were blocks of brick that went down into the water. And until I got out there and was able to walk the piers and see what they look like, they're up on pilings. They're nothing different than a small dock that you see in front of a house. Same position, same setup. The cap is about 10 feet off the water, 3.6 meters, I believe, which allows for, there's a built-in ability for sea level rise, if that were the case. Also allows for the free movement, everything to flow down there. Crustaceans and coral will return below. We find large developments below these. Different look at the view of the project, highlighting the cruise disembark area. Another piece of the puzzle is there's a clean line dividing cargo and cruise. Today, there's dispatch area over here. There's commingling between. It's not the best looking lineup for our guests, right? It's going to be clean. Guests will come off this pier, walk through the shopping, get on their bus, get in their taxis, head out. Other guests will still arrive by tender for they're at the DP spots out there, but just a much cleaner flow, much more sense of pride in what the Cayman Islands offers, appeal and satisfaction, right? Is that matching what our guests are seeing today? That's why we're looking to invest in this project. Employment opportunities. Project's going to take 2+ years to build all that. There will definitely be construction jobs. We also know from looking at the growth in the tourism sector, there'll be additional tourism jobs. The world that I work in, local entrepreneurship for tours and businesses. We calculate we'll need, just as Royal Caribbean, at least 10 additional tour operators to handle our growth of guests. Small business. What can I think of? What can I add to? What can I do to be a part of this? And it's not just tour operators. It's businesses that are close to downtown, different tour ideas that are at different parts of the island. We have venues where some of our best feedback from our guests are markets that are set up by local vendors. Artists, food, all those different pieces of the puzzle that need to support the guests. So we're looking at, with the completion of the piers, a growth of about 600,000 guests. That will mainly come from Royal Caribbean. Royal Caribbean currently only accounts for about 400,000 passengers because we are unable to bring our larger ships here. Royal Caribbean's inventory and Royal Caribbean's order book is the larger vessels. We currently have 4 Oasis class in the fleet. We have 2 more on order, and we have a new class of vessel coming out called Icon. It's the same size as Oasis. It's got some different capabilities, but so our next 4 ships coming are the vessels that are passing here by. We need the piers to be able to bring our vessels and our changing business. And as the Deputy Premier touched on, we have currently 3 Oasis-capable ships in the Caribbean year-round. In the summer months, they're just passing by. They're going to Roatan, they're going to Costa Maya, they're going to Cozumel, they're going to Falmouth, they're going to, I think that's it for Western Caribbean. But we will be able to develop itineraries that include Cayman. That is our goal. We are also currently working with the city of Galveston, Texas, to upgrade their current facilities to Oasis capable. We will have a year-round ship in Galveston. And we want to be able to bring that ship to Cayman Islands. But we need the pier. Improving the traffic flow. You saw it in the video, talking to the guests. We can change when ships come, allow them to arrive earlier, allow them to arrive later. Tender operations cannot be done at night. It's just unsafe. You can wait till after dark to have a ship leave with a pier. You don't have cancellations at the rate you do. We had cancellations on Sunday. Couldn't go to spots. One of our ports that we recently built a pier, we had 12% cancellation rates before we built the pier. Now we built the pier, we have less than 2% cancellation rates, right? A 10% reduction in cancellation by building the pier. Allows us to move people around quicker, get them off the vessel. I know you saw that one lady in the video say, "I barely made my tour." You're always thinking about that. How many people here get to the airport for an international flight 3 hours in advance, right? Maybe not in Cayman. You guys got a good system. But in Miami, you need to get there about 3 hours in advance. You got to go through security. Sometimes lines really long. I'm always thinking about how much time I need to have to get back to the airline. In the inverse, if I'm taking a train, if I'm up visiting my dad's family in New York, and I'm taking a train from New Haven to New York, I'll get to the train station 5 minutes ahead of time because the train's not going to leave early and I don't have to go through security. It's the same thing with tender versus pier. Guests are not thinking about, oh man, I've got to be back at 3 o'clock to get the last tender. Oh man, I'm not going to buy this because what if I got to wait in that 45-minute line for the tender? Oh man, I've got to get through security at Miami International. No. I'm going to wait till the last minute. I'm going to buy this last thing. It also allows us to do longer and different tour options. I mentioned when I first got up here, I work in the Global Tour Operations Department currently at Royal Caribbean. When we have a pier, we can do various turns, right? We can sell a tour that leaves at 8 a.m. because you can just walk right off. You can sell it at 12, you can sell it at 3, you can set it up and vary it as you'd like. As mentioned in the video, Oasis class guests are our highest revenue guests. They spend 20% more than any of our other guests. Very reflexive of the type of passengers and the type of guests you guys are trying to bring here to Georgetown and the Cayman Islands. 2018 study by BRIA, independent study, $100 million impact to the economy with the building of the pier. That is based mainly on the 600,000 additional guests and the crew associated with the larger vessels. This slide is just saying, depending on what happens with the referendum on December 19th, there are still other pieces of the puzzle that need to be done. We still need to continue to go through the geotechs. We need to finish all the other pieces of the puzzle before going forward. It's not just December 19th and boots on the ground. There's a whole process that needs to be followed. We just hope that the decision will be made to continue with it and allow the discussion to continue. Just a final slide, final thought from us. I touched on it at the very beginning. Verdant, Royal, Carnival, Orion, and McAlpine feel this is a win-win, and the government feel this is a win-win deal for everybody. There's no, I got the better of it, we're going to make more, you're going to make more. This is win-win. We're looking to improve the guest experience. You guys are looking to have somebody else invest in a great infrastructure project to leave for the people of the Cayman Islands for generations. We are committed to the relocation and the restoration of coral, done better than anywhere in the world. We see there's lots of job opportunities and entrepreneurship opportunities. That's just a quick overview from our perspective from Fertile Isles, and now I think we're going to open the floor up for questions. So thank you guys for sitting there listening and watching our video.
It's that time for your questions to be posed. I'll do the first one. Unanswered questions from previous meetings still have yet to be posted on the Support Our Tourism website as promised. Can we get an update, please? The information is critical to making an informed decision. I have been told that all questions have been posted on the website, and it's based on venue to venue. So this is our third public meeting, and they're all posted on the website now. A month won't make a difference to this project. So please explain how December 19th was chosen. It is the first week before Xmas. Also explain the choice to leave bars open. Is this not a clear attempt to reduce voter turnout?
No, not at all. It seems no matter what you do, you can never please CPR. They accuse the government of, or accuse is probably wrong, they said that the government was not going to honor the petition, that they were worried that we were going to delay, that we were not ready to face a referendum. This is a project that has been on the way for 6 years. Government has spent more than $5 million to get us to this point. I don't know what our port partners have spent, but I know it would be a significant amount. This is a government that was elected through 2 election cycles on the basis of a manifesto that included a commitment to construct a cruise port and enhance cargo port. We have a mandate to do this. We have a group and other people who have now been convinced that this project should not go ahead, who wish to derail the project. That is their constitutional right. The referendum affords them a process that affords them the opportunity to test whether or not their view is the prevailing view. We have a duty to those who elected us and to the country generally to get on with this process. If the view of the country is that the government has gotten it all wrong and that the majority of people here who can vote decide we shouldn't go ahead, the government will honor that decision. But what the government will not do is to malinger or to allow them to have this process delayed until they are satisfied they have significant numbers to succeed. There is a process now underway by them, CPR and the National Trust Executive, to seek to delay and frustrate the referendum set for the 19th of December. They have threatened that they will begin judicial review proceedings, seek an application, or make an application to seek leave for judicial review to the courts this week. So if that succeeds, then there will be no referendum on the 19th of December. And I don't know when there would be one. But the date was chosen, the 19th of December, because it was, frankly, the earliest date possible, given the process that the government had to go through to get here. We first had to draft a referendum bill. We then had to publish it for at least 21 days before the House was able to debate it. We had to provide time for the debate to occur and a vote to be taken. We then had to have the bill assented to by His Excellency the Governor before it came into effect. Until the law came into effect, there was no authority for the supervisor of elections to start the referendum process, issuing the usual writs and notices and so forth. So given all of those processes and the time required to effect them, the 19th of December, quite frankly, was the earliest date that a referendum could be held. The government was determined that this not drag over into the next calendar year. It is a massive distraction for government, a government that is dealing with a whole range of challenging issues, from issues involving the European Union and threats to our financial services industry, to the traffic situation that we are grappling with. We've just delivered the biggest budget the country has ever seen, 1.5 billion Cayman Islands dollars. We had the work in preparing that, delivering it, now debating it. My point in saying all of that is that this is not the only issue in the country. It may be the only one of importance to some people, but the government has to keep the country moving and administer its affairs through all of this. We wish to put this behind us. If the verdict is there's to be no cruise port, we accept that verdict. We think it'll be a travesty and a terrible decision, but we will respect that. But we are not, unless the court orders it, going to delay this process just to satisfy what the CPR wishes. The last point that was mentioned was about keeping the bars open. Really now, CPR, you think that in the middle of the Christmas season, when so many people and businesses would have booked and made arrangements for Christmas parties and Christmas luncheons, that we want to take the bread out of the mouth of those businesses who have been looking forward to having those sorts of that sort of a boost in their revenue over the Christmas period, not to mention the massive disappointment to the many businesses and people who would have made those arrangements already.
For realities of coral relocation, we only need to look at Falmouth, Jamaica, a similar project which initially had 89% success. However, less than 15% now remains alive. In concrete terms, what are you doing to avoid the same fate?
I'll take this one. Hopefully it won't double up. So different from Falmouth, Jamaica. It's a different environment. It's a different country. Jamaica has many different issues, overfishing. They had a mass reduction in some of the species that were living in the coral before the relocation. So what are we going to do different? We have a first-class, world-class team of experts to assist on the project. We've also committed for the duration of the project to monitor and replenish and grow more coral than was done in Jamaica. That was a totally different team, totally different set of circumstances. Jamaica has had major coral issues outside of the projects of that project that was relocated for Falmouth. Totally different set of circumstances.
One of the upsides of port is easy disembarking, but easy off is also easy on. On my trips, I took advantage of that to eat on board. Why are you confident that these more affluent passengers won't just do the same?
So I touched on this earlier during my discussion. We look at all the data. We call it a CPAS statistic. Royal Caribbean looks at all those numbers. Yes, people will return to the ship to eat. That's a factor. I don't know if you guys have ever been on a cruise, but people arrive early to get their meals. But differently, people will stay longer, right? We know how often people come and go. More people, many more people will leave the ship multiple times with a pier, right? We are confident in that because we have all of the data. Yes, people will. I took my daughter to go back on the ship, take a nap, grab a snack, but then we went back out. Without the pier, that does not happen. Yes, it does in very small percentages, but the ability of having the pier allows people to come back and forth. And our data shows that, right? We understand what our guests want better than anybody or anything you read on the internet, because that's our data and our guests, and we're looking at it.
Will this project really create good jobs for Caymanians? Will this project really create good jobs for Caymanians?
It creates good jobs over a long period of time. If you look at the types of jobs that were put on the screen earlier, you have 200 construction jobs that come out immediately. I think it's fair to say that when you start looking at from the bottom all the way up, you have skill sets that match the labor that we have available. You have engineers, some of the highest paying jobs are on the top scale. So we can be extremely confident from the construction industry that jobs will be made available, and they're jobs from top to bottom. But more importantly than that, the confidence that we put in that is that McAlpine, a company that we're extremely familiar with, great success on this island, major infrastructure development that they've done. I don't believe there's anybody that can say that they don't hire Caymanians, that they don't train Caymanians, and that they don't see successes here in the Cayman Islands. The second part of it is that it's the dividend that continues to pay because you build your industry around it. And when you look at the linkages, I'd just like you to think about following a jet ski tour operator and look at what happens to him. So the first thing, he's got an investment in a jet ski. It could be a boat or whatever. He's got a couple people hired that help the tourists that arrive. Then as he moves through the day, he has to buy fuel for the jet ski. That means a gas station has to get work out of it. He has to have his jet skis repaired. That means a mechanic has to get work out of it. He has to get insurance, which means a clerk gets help, has to be involved in it. When you go through the creativity of what happens as you look at the multiplier effect of this, you realize that if you grow your industry 30%, that 30% filters all the way to apartments that are rented, houses that are built, construction that's needed, and creates a vibrant economy.
And just one additional point of view from the cruise line, Royal Caribbean, we have 2 private destinations, Coco Cay and Labadee. We just announced our 3rd one in the South Pacific. Other than those 3 spots, we don't operate tours. We are not in the tour business, right? So what we are looking for, and who knows their destination better than the people who are from there, we rely on our third-party service providers to come up with those tours, to think of new and creative ideas that are addressing the needs of our guests, seeing what the culture's about, learning about a particular food, learning about something different that we didn't know about. I recently went and met with some people in the Bahamas, and there were many different new tour ideas that people were coming and pitching us about. There was a lady who owned an art studio that was thinking of putting together some type of art and painting class, right? Those are the things we rely on as the cruise industry to create and develop jobs, because nobody knows the destination like the people, right? And so we will need additional tours and additional tour operators, because like the piers, that's not our business. Our business is moving people on ships.
I really think that this is a key question, because this goes right to the benefit of the government policy, that it not only the jobs that are going to be created, but the jobs that are going to be created for 12 months out of the year. Now the only opportunity we have is to create jobs that are seasonal.
How soon can we start building after the referendum is won?
My name's Rob Lewis, I'm Vice President with Orion, and we'll be principally in charge with our partners here, McAlpine, for building the cruise terminal. Even after the referendum, the good people of the Cayman Islands vote to go forward, we still have a fairly lengthy process, pre-construction services up front, which a good bit of that is some more surveys, some more quantifications of the dredging, those sorts of things. But the principal thing is the coral relocation. There's 5-6 months of moving coral from site that's going to be impacted to its transplant site. And so construction can't take place during that period. We were hopeful to get started with some heavy construction in 2020, but it looks like it's more realistically 2021 at this point before the key wall construction and the dredging and the reclamation work and the piers after that. Orion, you may have previously known years ago, was Meisner Marine. They purchased Meisner Marine. I started with Meisner Marine in 1995 and went into the Orion family in 2002 when that happened. And I know many guys that were here during the Royal Walter Pier development when Ivan hit, and were here on the island during that period. And they have great memories of Cayman, and they look forward to returning and continuing to expand and upgrade your cruise and cargo facilities.
I'm Scott Hicks. I'm with Schneider Engineering. I'm a coastal engineer, and at Schneider Engineering, we are responsible for the marine design components. I want to touch a bit on Rob's schedule. I've spent quite a bit of time here in the last year, and I get concerned that people worry that with the referendum, the day after the referendum, that the dredges will show up on December 20th and start tearing up coral and dredging the harbor. And that's not the case. What a yes vote on the referendum means is it continues a process that was started in 2013 with the EIA, the Environmental Impact Assessment. In 2013, what was developed was a terms of reference, which really set the framework for what all the different factors that needed to go into an impact assessment. The government got to work with their contractors after that in 2013, between 2013 and 2015. Baird Consultants was a lead on that. And in 2015, they published a environmental impact assessment. And from there, the DOE has, who is the chair of the Environmental Assessment Board, provided numerous comments. They've had very critical comments, and that's their job. They are the environmental stewards of the Cayman Islands, and it's been our challenge from that date forward up until now to revise. And the plan that we have here is basically an incarnation, is an evolution of that plan to try to minimize impacts and mitigate impacts due to those comments and concerns from the DOE. Now, with our process going forward, and again, the yes vote on the referendum really just means we're continuing that process. We don't have permits in hand to build this project yet. We still need to get our coastal works permit to construct the port. That's not going to be done until the DOE and the EAB are satisfied that we have sufficiently mitigated and minimized impacts for the dredging, for the coral, and the surrounding area. So what happens in the next steps are, there's a lot of analysis, there's a lot of data that needs to be collected. We need to go out and do surveys, hydrographic surveys, which are surveys of the bottom. We need to do geotechnical surveys, which is understanding exactly what the material is that's going to be dredged. We need to go out there and map all the corals. We know, right now we estimate there's about 5 acres of coral that need to be removed of live, live coral that's out there. But we need to go out there and verify that and map all the coral. And then once we have the data, then we need to assess the different impacts from dredging, from how exactly we're going to relocate the coral. We have to develop a dredge management plan, a coral relocation plan, all in coordination and with review by the DOE and the EAB. The DOE is the chair of is the head of the Environmental Assessment Board. So there's really a lot of work that needs to be done, and really a yes vote on the referendum just allows that process to continue. And it does not mean, more importantly, that the dredges show up on December 20th and starts digging.
Thank you. If and when the port in town is built, will cruise ships still be able to come in if there's bad weather, or will they still have to go to spots?
So I touched on this earlier. There will be days, very minimally, where it will have to be canceled. Our current numbers in a similar port, where it was tender before to what it is today, 12% cancellations before, 2%, less than 2% now. I think currently, and correct me if I'm wrong, 8 days a year spots. So we'll have an even lower number. The captains in our department, in our company, are very confident in their ability to navigate these ships, even in winds that would require to go spots at other days. It will be a much better improvement and a lot less canceled calls if the pier is built.
During the building, dredging, etc., to make the facilities and piers, what happens to the present business ventures in snorkeling, diving, etc., and how will the cruise ships and cargo ships be accommodated with dredging and building going on?
Hey everyone, my name is Barry Loudermilk. I just showed up late. I was at another event out in Prospect, sorry. To answer the question about the
During construction and the businesses?
And the operations. So during the bid process, we did a very extensive phasing plan where we basically went through the construction component, because one of the mandates the government handed to us is no interference on the operations of the cruise or the cargo. So during our construction phase, we're able to not have any interruptions with either of those units. As far as businesses, it's business as usual. That's how we're treating this, and that's how we're treating the passengers and the cargo. The only businesses that will be interrupted are those associated with the Royal Watler building and those on the inside of the port area to the, what would that be, the west side of Harbor Drive inside the port area, because some of those buildings are going to be replaced with the new commercial facility.
The tender owners said in the newspaper, if they couldn't have all business, they would not run a business for some of the volume. Do you know why?
Well, I can only speculate that the volume of business that they think will remain, in their view, is not worth their while. But I'm not in their heads, so I'm just speculating.
I understand there will be a coral industry in the Cayman Islands. With the port, what benefits it will be to our people? I understand there will be a coral industry in the Cayman Islands. With the port, what benefits will it be to our people? I think it's the coral at the nursery. Yes, we want to, I have to read as it is on the paper just for, yes.
So the benefit of the coral restoration program is this was not a mandate by the government for us to do this. This is our responsibility as developers for the next 25 years to produce coral that will go back into the waters of Cayman. How does that benefit you all? Well, we're planning on planting over 100,000 coral species a year through this nursery. That's a big benefit. That's going to bring the biodiversity, the fisheries, back to the tourism part. You know, people can actually go out and see this over time. So we're actually putting an investment back into the people of Cayman Island and their coral reef system.
More is not always better. Please elaborate on infrastructure improvements, specifically waste management, that will enable Grand Cayman to deal with the larger influx of cruise passengers.
Well, let me start here. We've been at pains, I think, to try to have everyone understand that we are not proposing to increase the daily quota of cruise visitors. Right now, the peak is around 25,000 a day. We're not proposing that that number should go up because the peak season for cruise tourism is the summer months, and the peak season for stayover tourism for us in Cayman is the winter months. This works very well. So with Piers, the big ships, the Oasis class and the Icon class ships, will be able to come to Cayman because they will be able to utilize the piers and have their guests just walk off and on the ships, as has been explained. So the projected increase in numbers would be spread over the 12 months. So the carrying capacity of the island would remain principally the same. I think we have explained, not just in these meetings, but in the House recently, that we are making significant progress on finalizing the contract with the DART-led group with respect to the ISWIMS project, the Integrated Solid Waste Management Systems. And in fact, work on capping the landfill will begin early next year. We recognize that this is a major and critical piece of infrastructure that the country has needed for many years. And it is extremely complex, far more complex than this project, to get those parts together. But the government is not closing its eyes or sitting on its hands with respect to the need for improved infrastructure. But we don't have to wait until one is completed before we start planning the other. This project is still, in my view, if experience in the past is any indicator of what's likely to happen, we're still, assuming a positive outcome for the referendum, we're still 3 years away from this project being completed. And in that time, we should make considerable strides in dealing with infrastructure improvements, including and particularly the road network.
1.9 to 2.5 million passengers per year. How can we be certain that the extra visitors will come in the summer months, not the winter, and put further strain on existing tourist sites? Any guarantees on passenger numbers and what months they will come?
So one major benefit to having the cruise lines in this deal is we control the itineraries. So unlike the other bidders in the whole process, we are able to determine the itineraries. We can guarantee when the ships can pass through here. So looking at our Oasis needs going forward, we will see and can guarantee if a pier is built, we will bring it here in the summer months. That's the only guarantee that you're going to have, because those are the people that control the cruise lines. And one other point that was just passed up, and I've seen some of the other facts that are out there on the internet, cruise lines do not disembark waste in ports of call. That's just not how the business model, and I don't know if that was part of the question of how are we going to handle the infrastructure of bringing more waste with the additional 2.5? We don't disembark in ports of call, items like that. We do it in our waste management system and through our home ports.
The only way they're going to get paid back, it's their money that they're spending to build this. The only way they're going to get paid back is to bring the people to come over the cruise berthing facility.
And the additional factor comes back to one of the key bits of this deal, is that through all of this, the Port Authority of the Cayman Islands remains in control of how many passengers come here and when how many ships are permitted at any particular point. We are not relinquishing control of that process. So if we say, as we are saying now, that the peak is 25,000, that'll be the basis on which the Port Authority operates.
The position that we find ourselves in today is there is no incentive for the cruise lines to come and have an investment in Cayman itself. So if tomorrow morning they decide that they're not going to anchor in Georgetown, it's nothing that they're going to leave behind. Their ship just sails away, and they have no incentive to stay here. But an investment the size of what they're going to do makes it extremely uncomfortable for them if they decide not to call here as a port. So it's as much of a guarantee as we can get as a country that they're going to continue to call here when they invest that type of money in Cayman.
It has been mentioned that this will create more opportunities for Caymanians. But what structures will be put in place to ensure that the same said Caymanians are trained or given first preference in all of these positions going forward?
Well, the first part of it is that the starting point is that only Caymanians get taxi licenses. The second part, I think, that has been identified by the Vice President of Royal Caribbean tonight is the incentive for people to come to a destination is to experience the culture and the attraction that is there. When you take a cruise, you're actually going to experience 6 different cultures, 6 different experiences. And the extremely important to the cruise business is that you are not the same as one before. So there's nobody else that can represent Cayman and give a Cayman kind experience as a Caymanian can. So from a tour industry, that gives you a competitive advantage. There are other ideas that we're talking about, whether it be funding for different types of businesses that are going to come available, but with a government policy to create opportunity, there's quite a bit of very positive things that can come out when you're going to have a 30% increase in the passenger arrivals.
Will we be able to have 4 to 5 ships in port during the construction period? If yes, what is the plan to ensure we continue business as is?
I believe that question was answered by Mr. Loudermilk a little while ago.
Given the scope of the project's change, why has the government chosen to try to go forward before a refreshed environmental impact assessment is completed?
Hi there, Peter Ranger, Chief Project Manager of Public Works. The reason we're going forward is the change is a positive change. So as on the slideshow earlier, the mitigation measures have been put forward, the scheme that's been put forward, we believe will have less environmental impact. So there's a scoping exercise getting done just now by the Verdant Consortium. So to answer your question, as Scott's gone through before, if it's a yes after referendum, there still is a permitting process, a coral relocation plan, a dredge management plan, an environmental management plan, all of which need to be produced before they get a coastal works license to build. So I think people keep on getting confused about this. It's change, we need to go back. It's change, we need to go back. It's change for the positive, and we're moving forward with a normal permitting process.
The cargo portion of this project is a recent add-on. If the cruise pier is rejected December 19th, will the cargo improvement be considered for a future project on its own?
That's one of the key pieces of misinformation that is still floating around. The enhancement of the cargo port has always been a critical part of this overall project. Now, in terms of funding for it, we have an incredible deal whereby the cruise passengers' head tax will fund the construction of, or the enhancement of the cargo port. So there is no separate money for it. There is also no provision in the current budget for anything to do with the cruise port or the enhanced cargo port. So the reality is, if the referendum does not or if the referendum succeeds in stopping this project, it will be another government who looks at what may be done with respect to the cargo port. This government has less than 18 months to run.
In the video presentation, the cruise rep stated high season was during summer months. Is that referring to all cruise industry, Alaska, Europe, Asia, Caribbean, or just Caribbean? What is the peak month season for Caribbean cruises?
So Royal Caribbean as a whole, 60% of our business is in the Caribbean. The other 40% are shift between the Caribbean and some of the other jurisdictions that were mentioned. So our ships in Alaska a lot of times shift to Australia and vice versa every year. Go back and forth, stop in Hawaii in the middle. European season is summer, but a large majority of our business stays in the Caribbean year-round. Our Oasis class ships, 3 of the 4 of them, are currently located in the Caribbean. And that's what the plan is to stay, is to continue bringing the Oasis class ships to the Caribbean, because this is our core business. And the point is, on the summer months, that's when we receive the most cruise passengers paying the highest dollar. So if you think about the school year in the United States, most of our guests come from Florida and the eastern coast of the United States for Royal Caribbean. When kids are on vacation, those are our high seasons. So that's when people are going. Royal Caribbean is a family-focused business. That's what people are looking to do on their summer vacation. So that's our high season.
I think this one is for you.
Okay.
Are there really passengers that stay on the ship instead of tendering?
92% of our passengers, on average, will get off the ship once during tendering. It's around 98% when there's a pier, greater than 98%. So the major benefit, I mean, that's not a huge difference in numbers, but the benefit is the back and forth. They will come off multiple times in a pier.
Though there have been threats to withhold some of the larger ships, these larger cruise lines are proven bullies. They need us more than we need them. Why will you not stand up for them and support our country? Why not stand up to them and support our country?
Well, I'm not sure what we'll be standing up to. We've managed to negotiate the best possible arrangement anyone has ever known with respect to dealing with cruise companies and the construction of a pier. We think this is a magnificent opportunity for Cayman. I'm not sure what we'll be standing up to or standing up for.
And one other piece.
Or against.
And one other additional piece, it's not a threat, it's just a fact. Royal Caribbean has never tendered an Oasis class. That's just a fact of life. It's not a threat. We would love to if possible. People say it can be done. They look at a number on a mathematical equation. Logistically, it cannot be done. You cannot disembark 6,000 people by 2 shell doors in under 4 hours. It's not theoretically possible. So we're not threatening that we're not going to bring our ships here if you don't build a pier. It's not possible. It's just a fact of life.
If the current portion of the passenger fees that goes towards paying for the tender boats will go to Verdant, but we are still tendering some of the smaller cruise ships, how will and who will pay for those tender boats going forward?
Repeat the question one more time, please.
If the current portion of the passenger fees that goes towards paying for the tender boats will go to Verdant, but we are still tendering some of the smaller cruise ships, how will and who will pay for those tender boats going forward?
Good evening, everyone. Strand Bodden, Minister of Tourism. So if there's still tendering going on, it'll be the same fee structure as it stands right now. There'll be no change. They'll pay the Cayman Islands government departure tax, they'll pay the EPF fund fee, and they'll pay the Port Authority. So it wouldn't change for anybody that's tendering. And they could self-tender and not pay a tender company, but it would be the same process as it stands now.
How many Oasis ships can dock at a time and dis between the inside dock ships? How many Oasis ships can dock at a time and dis between the inside dock ships? DIS.
The answer is 4, and I think dis might be distance, and I would need to just get back on exact numbers. But one thing that Cayman Island government did do a very amazing job of was to go out to 4 or 5 major cruise lines and ask for their input back in the 2016 period on the initial structure. So all of the marine departments of the cruise lines have looked at the basic parameters. People ask how much space we need in the draft. Royal Caribbean, with the largest cruise ships in the world, say that we need 11.5 meters to bring our ships in. That's the draft we need, about 38 feet. That provides us the distance and the comfort that the captains have. That area between the 2 ships is also decided by the marine departments of the companies. So I don't know the specific number offhand, but it's more than enough for a captain to feel comfortable to pull the ship in.
Maintenance cost of a 25-year-old pier is another question. What is the maintenance cost of a 25-year-old pier?
So this is part of the ongoing negotiations as part of the discussion. The number will be set, and Verdant Isle will be responsible for that. Our initial estimates look around $90 to $100 million, about $4 million a year in benefits for the maintenance of the piers. One of the questions that somebody asked me at another situation was, what if you guys don't put in that maintenance? It's our guests that we're bringing, right? Safe arrival and departure of our guests is the most important thing. The maintenance will be there. Not only are we contractually obligated, but we're obligated to the safety and well-being of our guests. So we will be investing that money back, and we are contractually obligated to turn the pier over basically in a perfect state at the end of the 25 years.
Kenya lost possession of its port for failing to repay. What is the plan in the event that tourism does not pan out the way we anticipate? What are the repayment agreements for this situation, as being without such a clause is not possible?
I think the operative
word in this is that it's an investment and not a loan. So how they get paid back is when somebody goes over the dock, they get the head fee. So that's how the owner's burden gets paid back. So if they don't bring the tourists to Cayman to transit the cruise berthing facility, they don't get paid back. And it stretches until they bring enough tourists to pay themselves back.
Do the other islands we compete with for tourism have to tender? Do the other islands we compete with for tourists have to tender?
There is currently, not that I can think of offhand, Santorini is probably the largest other additional port in the world, which is in Greece, which isn't really in your competitive playbook. There's nothing in the Caribbean where we have to tender at this size and this scale. St. Martin, I would say, would be historically the most comparable example, and Coco Cay, which is the private destination for Royal Caribbean. We just completed our pier in May of 2018. That would be the only one I could say is a tender pier that competes, but that's a totally different thing because that's one of the private destinations. There's nobody of the size. There's nobody who's tendering anywhere near 1.8 million passengers. It doesn't exist. This is the only place in the world.
Are you willing to implement an agreement that cruise lines will receive no more than 30% of the end user pricing for any Cayman activity?
So, another question that we get a lot, and I think this is basically going back to the point of, will we guarantee the markup on tour product, is what I'm kind of trying to read between the lines. People ask us, will we set a certain price? We are not in the business of telling people how much their tour should cost. We are wholesale purchasers. So what we do is we go out to market every 2 years to an RFP. We're all publicly traded companies. We look for the best price and the best product that's available. What we do is we say, hey, look, I need to bring 200 passengers to do XYZ tour, 50 guests who need to do an ABC tour. What's the price you're willing to offer that service at? It's a competitive market set by supply and demand. It's like anything in this world. You don't want government involving in private business. You set a price, you say, hey, look, would you be willing to purchase this at this number? And then we're willing to sell it. Competition in business makes people better. So if we've gone with one business for 2 years, somebody can come in and provide a better product. Sometimes we will change. It just happens. It's supply and demand. Then we set the price and sell it on board. We don't tell you what your price has to be. All we are is wholesale purchasers. You give it to me at what you're making your margins on, and then I sell it again. And that's how the business works, like anything.
It is important that the Eastern District benefits as much from our cruise tourism as do the districts of West Bay and Georgetown. Once the berthing facilities are built, will the extra time which passengers can remain on shore be sufficiently long enough to allow taxi and tour operators to transport cruise passengers from Georgetown to the Eastern Districts where other attractions are available?
We not only hope that they get to Eastern Districts, we hope that they get to Cayman Brac. Yeah. The infrastructure that has been identified as a priority by Premier and government this year, and the funding that has been in place is backed by the ability for us to get more tours into Northside, East End, and Boddentown. I think the numbers now reflect 15% increase at Pedro with tours, 5% Botanical Garden, and the caves in Northside are doing extremely well and continue to set the pace. So the traffic issue is being identified as a priority with longer stays in the port and sorting out the transportation issue, the opportunity for the Eastern District's north side, and helicopter tours to Cayman Brac are absolutely priorities for us.
And one additional point on that, one of our #1 selling tours in Cozumel, which is a small island, is the Chichen Itza tour in mainland Mexico, right? There are 4 piers in Cozumel, Mexico. People debark, get on a bus, go to a ferry from Cozumel to the mainland, take a bus 100 miles to Chichen Itza, and come back. 100 miles there, 100 miles back. It's one of our #1 selling tours in Cozumel, right? The potential is there. The ability is there. We want more diversity. We want to see more things. Our favorite thing is for guests to come back and discover something new. Most return guests don't want to do what they did last time. They want to see something new. So having the pier will allow you to open up additional opportunities.
You have claimed that having berths will lead to spreading the cruise visitor load across the week and across the year. Why can't spreading the load be done now? In this a case of promise that wouldn't be met possibilities or met possibilities that are being currently withheld to force us to build berths?
I think the short answer to that is that the ships that are deployed in the Caribbean during the summer months are the big ships, and both of the cruise companies say they will not tender those ships, or they cannot logistically tender those ships.
How can you justify spending the public's purse on advertising that is pro the port when you are not yet in possession of all the facts?
Let me say this. It wasn't government who brought this referendum. It wasn't government who gathered a petition with sufficient signatures to trigger a referendum. We are doing what we are bound constitutionally to do. Having received the petition with the requisite number of signatures, the government is bound to hold a referendum. As I said earlier, for a long time, the complaint was that government was not going to do this. We were not in control of the timing on this. The CPR group were. Government is carrying out its constitutional duty. Where we are with the project is where we are with the project. We have a preferred bidder. The nature of the project was such that it's a design, build, finance, maintain, that government could not be in possession of critical facts until the bidder was chosen, because as I said, because of the nature of the tender. So we are where we are, and a referendum is called. We are doing our very best to get as much information into the public domain as possible, because there are massive amounts of misinformation and speculation out there. A whole year of misinformation, in fact. And we believe that our electorate is quite capable of judging what is true and what is not, and that there is more than enough information for the country to decide as a concept whether or not they believe a cruise berthing and enhanced cargo facility is in the overall best interest of Cayman. I can't quite understand. You want a referendum, you've got a referendum, But now you want for there not to be a referendum until you have every single bit of information. It's just not possible with a project this complex and with the way that the whole arrangement is structured for us to have all of the information. It'll be another year, perhaps, before you're in that position.
Since they, bracket Royal Caribbean, etc., are charge of the itinerary, could they please work with the Cayman Islands government to stop the cruise ships from coming in on Christmas Day, as the Turtle Farm, Pedro, St. James, Botanical Park are not open? I think the reason given was that it was not profitable for them to open on that day. The passengers are disappointed when they come to the island and find hardly anywhere open. Also, the government officials are at home with their families while taxi drivers, shop owners are at work. Yes, it is a choice whether or not to go to work on that day, but can you imagine for everyone deciding not to go to work on that day? The head tax is still collected, but the passengers are not satisfied. Will this be considered?
Yes, it will be.
VIP and CIG have said that very important information will come out after the referendum vote. If any Caymanian voter has doubts about this particular port plan, concerns about VIP as partners, or serious unanswered questions about its impact on our country, wouldn't voting no on December 19th be the only way they could possibly see their questions answered? Isn't voting no the only way we can carry on this conversation as a people before making a potentially devastating mistake?
We set a government policy to look for opportunity for the people of the Cayman Islands. It's an obligation that a government has. For us to move forward, we are in a timeline, and we have a preferred bidder, and we have an understanding of what is available. If we cannot move forward, this is a product mix that takes up over 20% of our tourism product, which is the second pillar of our economy. We're not going to be able to find a product that is going to replace this 20% in a short period of time, so we're going to have a void with it. And Premier has already said that there's no funding available to continue this project. So it will stop, and we will struggle to understand and find the new business to complement and take over the 20% void.
This is a direct message from one of our persons in attendance. My family depend on the cruise passengers, and I support the port 100%. Build it already. You think we should end on that one?
Sabrina, that wasn't a question, and I agree entirely with all that. But there's one point I think that it might be helpful to make. There is, I am told, a considerable amount of fear-mongering going on, claiming that once these piers are completed and the facility is open, that local operators won't be able to operate from there. I'm not sure where that came from. The whole thing is being designed precisely for local operators. But what this will do, this will make the pie bigger so that there is more to go around, not just in the peak months of the year, but all year long. So that tour operators, taxi drivers, others associated with the cruise industry will be able to better plan their business, not worrying about, well, it's all feast or famine. What we are trying to do is to, as the Deputy Premier says, to flatten out the numbers so that we get solid, consistent numbers all year long. and not these peaks in the winter months, which sometimes put more strain on the system than we are capable of managing properly.
Why has the new environment impact assessment been approved to happen after December 19th vote?
I think Peter answered that question already.
Please provide any current or recent documentation, independent scientific data or study to confirm that there will be no meaningful damage or harm to the quantity and quality of 7 Mile Beach sand or to the water quality and clarity conditions in the Hogstye Bay area from the proposed revised cruise and cargo port enhancement project.
Again, it's Scott Hicks, Schneider Engineering, coastal engineer. We talked a bit about this in the video, very much a high-level summary. There's a slide of the island in the presentation if you have it up that kind of shows. I'm not sure if we still have the presentation, but in short, 7 Mile Beach is what's known as a pocket beach. And in the video, I think I simplified it and said that there's, very little. There we go, right here. So 7 Mile Beach, there's very little sediment input from other locations. Now that's true for the most part. I mean, there's arrows. What happens is the waves on the east end of the island, generally the winds are from the east to the west, transport sand along the north and south sides of the island. And that sand, for the most part, ends up off into the deep, off of the drop-off on the west end of the island. There are some situations where some sand does sneak around, particularly on the northwest coast, but primarily the sand is what's on 7 Mile Beach is there, what's there. And there's not a lot of new sand that's brought to 7 Mile Beach. From the south, you see right here, Georgetown, the harbor right here is kind of set in, and it's deeper right there. So any sand that comes around is actually lost into that pit. That's where the harbor, which is the natural harbor already right now, that sand gets kind of trapped there. So the sand from the south to the north doesn't really make its way up to 7 Mile Beach for any sand that does make it up there. And so this is not my studies or any of my analysis as a coastal engineer. This is all based on numerous studies regarding the morphology or the beach movement of 7 Mile Beach. This is summarized in the 2015 EIA, as well as, I think I wrote it down before this meeting, there's 2 reports from 1983 and the Roberts report and Seymour report in 2000 are 2 other studies that also confirm that assessment that 7 Mile Beach is relatively independent for sand input and does not rely on sand being transported through the harbor area, the port area.
Why doesn't this cruise ships give the tour operators more from the sale of the tours? What does the smaller man get when the pre-booked tours go to the big man?
So I answered the piece about the selling of tours. We are a wholesale purchaser. Those are the ones we offer on board our ships. Additionally, and as you see anytime you drive by the pier, many of our guests go on independent tours. That's part of the business, part of the additional jobs that will grow. So in a given itinerary, 40 to 50% of people purchase a tour on board. The number of people who take a tour while on a week-long cruise ship is about 80 or 90%. So there is a large piece of the pie that is available for independent tours. The people that are selling out right out front of the tours, the taxis who take people to a beach experience, that's all different pieces that we're not involved in, but we like it. Not all of our guests want to take a tour in every port. Normally, our guests will budget or put 1 or 2 tours per port per itinerary in their budget when they're planning. Additionally, a lot of them just want to go out, walk around, see. Sometimes they'll pick up an independent tour, have a discussion with somebody who will take them somewhere. So there are many different pieces of the dynamic of the economy of cruise tourism, and it's out there and ready for entrepreneurs to be a part of.
Due to time, I'm going to read one final question, and then I'll turn the mic over to Honorable Speaker. If there's any damage to 7 Mile, this project will stop. Words spoken tonight by the Premier. But according to CNS on the 23rd of September 19, government claims 7 Mile Beach is safe from the dock. So which is it? There is 100% proof that 7 Mile will not be damaged? Or is it a chance that it might be damaged? Please be straight and direct. Thanks.
Okay, 7 Mile Beach again. So obviously, 7 Mile Beach is of tremendous concern. It is an economic engine, obviously, to the island. And so the question is, how are we going to be certain whether 7 Mile Beach is protected from the project? And I talked about the sediment transport and that there's been numerous studies that have shown that there's no direct linkage between sand from the south to the north. However, this goes back to my first statement when I got up before and I talked about the process. We're just starting that process now, the environmental process for the updated, we're continuing, as far as our involvement, we're just starting, but this process started in 2013 and we're continuing it as VIP for this current port design, for this updated port design. And so in our work, we'll be looking at a number of different impacts. We'll be evaluating whether the current design actually has any impact to 7 Mile Beach, confirming the previous studies. And as the Premier said, and as other people have said, if there's some indication that we're going to have damage to 7 Mile Beach, it's of tremendous importance. That's a huge impact that needs to be mitigated and cannot be allowed to go forward. It's not my words. And so that's,
Thank you very much, Sabrina. And thank you to our panel who have, I think, done a good job in answering questions here tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, our common sense has always prevailed. And that is what has built Georgetown, built West Bay, built the entire Cayman Islands, our good common sense. We don't know it all. And I know you don't expect that your elected officials know it all. We don't. Which it has taken us years and millions in studies and reports to arrive at the informed position we have. And as never before, and I have been, last week Thursday, 35 years elected, we have surrounded ourselves with informed people and experts in every aspect of the proposal that the government is working from the very fish and corals to the wave patterns and the true environmental viability. I must tell you, if I was the Minister of Tourism, I wasn't going to spend no money to save Balboa. Understand that? You're getting much more. So, my friends, as I said, questions have been asked and answered. There is no better acceptable place than where the port now sits. It is our harbor. It is not a marine park. There is no better time to do it than now. And there are no better people to make it all happen than those who are here to speak and to listen with you this evening. The government have all the key information. Do not listen to these people to make you believe that government is going off half-cocked. That is not so. What is half-cocked is those people that are asking half questions. The government have all the key information to make decisions thus far to carry us through. Let us not make more out of it and out of the situation than what it is. Ladies and gentlemen, while no doubt there are those who love these islands that oppose us, what I can tell you is they don't love these islands. They have not worked more for it. They have not accomplished as much for these islands than the government members you have today. People are hard at this referendum. Most of them, not all of them, some of them are genuine, but they are looking for a seat in the assembly. That's what this is all about. So let's see. We will, as a government, fight and give as good as we get. Ladies and gentlemen, we were asked the question, why did we have this kind of meeting? If we went the other route, an open meeting for questions, the way that they usually want to come and take the mic and talk all night long on it. No. If we went that route, we would have a free-for-all. And not as many questions would be answered than what has been answered tonight. Don't you agree that this has been a tremendous amount of answers? I think we all are in agreement. This is much more orderly. We thank you for coming, and as a government, you can believe that we are doing what is right for the people of these islands. You ain't gonna get no better. Look at them. If you want to turn over your future to that bunch, go ahead. Be careful you don't get what you want. Ladies and gentlemen, we want to thank the Minister, Tourism, the Premier. We want to thank our panel for being here with us in West Bay. We are going to watch the situation because we understand that CPR is coming down West Bay. I hope to God they tell the truth, because so far they haven't. We will watch the situation, and if we need to come back, we will. God bless you. God bless you.
Just a matter of housekeeping, just to let you know that this Thursday, we will be at the Emsley Memorial Church Hall. Saturday, November 23rd, we'll be at the Savannah Primary School Hall. And November 26th, Boddentown Civic Center. December 3rd, East End Civic Center. Northside on December 5th. And we're going to the BRAC on Friday, December 6th.